Chapter 5. Vincent had traveled as far and fast as he could on the afternoon of his departure before reluctantly stopping to rest against an old fallen tree after night had set in. He couldn't relax or stop his knee from bouncing from impatience. He had vowed to reach Cheddar in a single day, and he wasn't about to let Zero win again. However, exhaustion and fatigue from the past 2 days quickly pulled him under into a fitful sleep. As dawn broke, a variety of colorful birds sang softly, whispering to one another, and small creatures scurried through the undergrowth into the shadows. However, this peace and tranquility were quickly disturbed by thundering footsteps as Vincent tore through the jungle of weeds and plant life like a man possessed. It was Vincent's first time outside of the Ryuuga prefecture, and the world was entirely new to him. He ran headlong into the wild abyss with passion and enthusiasm at the helm. Despite the burning desire to cover ground quickly, Vincent couldn't help but frequently stop whenever a strange-looking bug, a peculiar rock, or even an unfamiliar color caught his attention. Each distraction, no matter how innocent or childlike, only further diverted Vincent from his direction to the south. After a full day of exploration, the sun hung low in the sky as he reached the painful conclusion that he was well and truly lost. Cursing and grumbling, Vincent tried to reorient himself, retracing his steps before settling at a nearby lake that led to a large waterfall. His eyes trailed the flight of an insect with fluorescent blue wings that left a turquoise trail of light behind as it zipped by. The small creature hovered over the stream, setting itself down on the water's surface for a brief moment. Distracted yet again, Vincent leaned in with a naive curiosity. As his nose approached the tiny winged creature, a large fish with 6 glowing yellow eyes quickly burst upward and gobbled up the insect in an instant, dousing his face. Vincent's frustration was a constant simmer beneath his skin, but his pride demanded that he finish what he started. He felt silly for being so gung-ho. He wanted to prove something to Zero and himself. Vincent wiped his face on the front of his dirty singlet as he marveled at the cascading body of water. Orange and red light crept through the foliage of the treetops above, dancing on the rippling water's edge. Vincent slowly rose to his feet. How could it be sunset already? He had barely made any progress, and he was still lost in this god-forsaken place. He scowled, remembering Zero's smug face and the note scratched into the ground. "South is this way, moron." Puzzled and scratching his head frantically, Vincent closed his eyes, thinking back to the direction of the sunset the day before. If the sun was to my right yesterday... Vincent's eyes snapped open, and he smirked, impressed by his self-appointed brilliance. "This way must be south," he assured, squatting down low and launching himself high into the air. Vincent was dazzled by the forest's beauty from this angle and height, but he couldn't see anything that resembled a pathway or town in the distance. "Holy crap!" Vincent exclaimed. "Zero was serious when he said it would take 2 days." Landing hard at the water's edge in a crouch, Vincent stretched his legs and arms. There was no way he was stopping for another night. However, the jump had given Vincent an idea. Prepping himself like an athlete at the starting blocks for a sprint, Vincent placed his hands on the ground and braced his legs before darting forward at top speed. He leapt upward with all his might, launching himself into the sky yet again. With the momentum catapulting him forward, Vincent covered a great distance as he sailed high above the treetops. The woodland vista was a blur beneath his feet, and soon he descended back beneath the foliage, landing with a thud and cracking the ground underfoot. "Perfect!" he thought to himself, mentally patting himself on the back. He might be there before daybreak at this rate at least. Each time Vincent propelled himself upwards, it brought him closer and closer to Zero. Vincent's confidence surged as he repeatedly soared through the afternoon sky. But as the sun set, the forest became engulfed in darkness, and landing had become increasingly difficult. He had no visibility of his surroundings, and no time to adjust or prepare for the uneven terrain below as he fell. Vincent's brilliant idea was becoming less brilliant with each clumsy stumble or slip. He considered running the rest of the way, but as he descended one final time, his foot landed on something soft. A shrieking howl permeated through the darkness, blanketing the forest as Vincent toppled over. Groaning, he got back to his feet, dusting himself off. It was likely that he had killed the poor creature. The sheer velocity of his descent would have shattered its body completely. The least he could do was bury the poor thing. Very few creatures made their way into the ghetto, but when they did, Vincent went out of his way to care for any strays he found. Vincent could just make out several large shapes ahead as his eyes adjusted to the darkness of the forest. Deep, menacing growls emanated from the shadows around him, and Vincent backed away cautiously. He looked around, spotting a clearing where the moonlight illuminated a small portion of the open area. Vincent began to run, but he heard the gallop of several pairs of heavy footsteps pursuing closely behind as he did so. Having reached the clearing, he quickly spun around to prepare himself. The thunderous footsteps slowed, careful not to reveal themselves while staying within the shadows of the tree line. Although Vincent was aware that many creatures now surrounded him, something large was approaching from the back of the pack. He could feel a dark power emanating from the beast, and the hairs on the back of his neck rose. He steeled himself in anticipation. Slowly, a massive scaled black paw with razor-sharp claws caught the moonlight as the beast sauntered out from the shadows. It was an enormous demonic dog-like creature, each leg as thick as Vincent's entire body. It was roughly 12 feet in length, with a muscular form and dark coarse fur covering most of its body. A long tail, filled with scales and a massive tuft of hair at its tip, followed lazily behind the beast as it crept forward. All other features paled compared to this behemoth's terrifying long, sharp horn that protruded from its forehead. This creature was a hellhound, a terrifying nocturnal monster that hunted in large numbers, with a single alpha leading each pack. Vincent went pale. He was terrified at the sight of the beast. Quickly eyeing the trees around him, 8 slightly smaller hellhounds stepped out of the shadows. The alpha let out a blood-curdling howl that pierced Vincent's head. He covered his ears from the piercing shriek as one of the creatures leapt towards him. The hellhound swooped at Vincent with deadly precision, missing him by a hair's breadth, slicing open the side of his singlet and leaving a small gash in his side. Vincent looked down, stunned. How could he be bleeding from the claw of a beast when knives, swords, or even a gun couldn't pierce his flesh? Vincent's stomach dropped as nervousness and fear prickled his skin. He had no idea how to fight these monsters, but he bared his teeth at the beasts around him in warning. Strangely, the last part of Zero's note flashed in his mind. Don't die. What a smartass, Vincent thought to himself. But if he were going down, it certainly wouldn't be without a fight. Another hellhound leapt out, swiping at Vincent's leg, testing him, and attempting to cripple and incapacitate his movements. Vincent jumped, easily avoiding the attack, only for another hound to swipe out from behind. Despite Vincent's lightning-fast reflexes, these demonic-looking beasts were intelligent and hunting in a pattern. All 8 of the smaller hellhounds were working together as if with one mind to bring Vincent down. Meanwhile, the alpha stood silently, watching. Its lips quivered to reveal several rows of large white teeth, and a thick string of pungent drool hung from its mouth. It was savoring the hunt, barely able to contain its anticipation to tear into Vincent's blood-soaked flesh. With each attack more vicious than the last, Vincent dodged and flailed relentlessly. As he did so, the circle of beasts around him grew smaller, greatly reducing his maneuverability. It wasn't looking good. Sweat dripped from his brow as Vincent tried to calm himself. Pushing away the fear and panic rising in his chest, he took a deep breath. He would have to go on the offensive if he was to make it through this alive. A hellhound moved towards him, but this time, Vincent lunged forward, dodging the beast's claws and delivering a heavy blow to its face. Vincent could hardly believe how hard the creature's skull was. His fist was throbbing from the impact, but his attack had sent the hellhound soaring. The rest of the pack jumped back from him, wary. This was his chance. Vincent made a break for it, rushing through a narrow gap between the beasts and sprinting into the darkness at top speed. He had no idea which way to go, but given the circumstances, he didn't care. It wasn't likely that he wouldn't be able to hide, but maybe, just maybe, he could get to higher ground. Vincent's body was seizing as he ran. He was already exhausted from refusing to rest throughout the day. He could no longer run at his top speed, and he could feel the pack closing in behind him. Several smaller hellhounds began to overtake his pace, keeping a tight formation to surround their prey. Then, in a split second, Vincent veered off to the right and straight into one of the hellhounds, knocking it off balance and delivering a heavy blow to its face. "That's 2 down!" Vincent exclaimed. Another leapt out of the darkness and attacked. Vincent jumped backward and awaited the inevitable back attack. He turned in anticipation, and sure enough, there was one of the devilish canines, mid-jump in his direction. Its boisterous roar was cut short by Vincent, smashing his fist into its open jaw, shattering bone, and sending its massive tusk-like teeth across the forest floor. "That's 3. And 4! He jeered as another beast was taken out with a lightning-fast elbow to the temple. Vincent smiled from ear to ear, confident that he had figured out their attack patterns. This sudden outburst of happiness would have appeared psychotic to an observer. Here he was, in unfamiliar territory with several apex predators trying to feast on his flesh, yet Vincent couldn't help but relish the challenge. Beating an enemy with so much power was exhilarating. The remaining hellhounds scattered, darting throughout the forest, and circled Vincent as they ran at terrifying speeds. Vincent's eyes could barely keep up with them, and they each let loose a blood-curdling howl. The high-pitched halo of noise painfully blasted into Vincent's eardrums. Disoriented and off balance, he stumbled while holding his head. Suddenly, the gigantic alpha burst through the canopy overhead, landing next to Vincent with a heavy thud. It surged forward, scooping its head down and back up again violently. Shock rippled through Vincent as a small stream of blood trickled down his side. His eyes wide, Vincent shuddered, looking down at the alpha's horn skewered through his left shoulder. The blood-crazed hellhound let out a tremendous guttural roar, lifting its head and waving Vincent's body around like a victory flag. Pain like he had never felt before radiated through Vincent's body as he screamed in both terror and agony. He grabbed the ivory horn with shaking hands, while a steady river of blood poured from the gaping wound through his fingers. The slick red wetness ran across the alpha's harsh brow, settling into the monster's mouth. Piercing red eyes bored into Vincent's as the beast drank deeply, closing its eyes and losing itself to the bloodlust. Suddenly, a red glow illuminated the vermilion canine's face from above, its triumph premature. Vincent's eyes were wide, beaming a bright white as the intricate red glowing patterns scorched into his body lit up the surrounding area. For a brief moment, Vincent appeared more menacing than the alpha that had impaled him. The beast looked up frightfully, just as Vincent's fist hammered down, shattering through the giant horn. The forest echoed with the hellhound's pain-filled wail. It recoiled, pawing at its face in distress. With the horn still lodged in his shoulder, Vincent landed heavily on the ground, blood spilling around his feet. The rage that had taken over had quickly subsided, and his mind was clear again. However, Vincent had lost a great deal of blood. The beast was far too formidable. Even in his weakened state, there was no way that he could defeat it. His only option was to flee. A trail of blood lined the forest floor behind Vincent as he ran. The red marks across his body began to flicker and fade, along with most of his fleeting strength. The rest of the pack gave chase, and Vincent's vision started to fade. He couldn't catch his breath, and it was getting more and more labored. Suddenly, Vincent's legs gave out beneath him, and he came down hard, chin first, into the dirt. The pack of hellhounds surrounded him again, tightening their perimeter, making a single space for the alpha to step through. The injured behemoth inched closer, its massive frame looming over Vincent's bloody body. Vincent closed his eyes. This was it. The beast hung its head over the nape of Vincent's neck, ready to strike. Vincent reflected upon his recent trend of near-death experiences. After 17 years of feeling indestructible, suddenly, he would face his mortality twice in 3 days. The irony was not lost on him. He was not ready to die, and he desperately tried to figure a way out of this mess. After so many new experiences in such a short time, his life had finally started to change. Hope wasn't just some fleeting dream anymore. Vincent's mind scrambled, desperately searching for anything, anyone who could help him. He uttered a single breathless word: help. But it was barely a whisper. Then, out of the darkness, he heard a shout, followed by a bright orange light that blanketed the forest floor. Vincent lifted his head, but all he could see was the distorted image of a figure waving what looked to be fire. Vincent's lips quivered, attempting to form words, but before his fate was clear, the world went black. Vincent had lost consciousness.